With the holidays usually comes some holiday sweets. So today I'm sharing with you my favorite recipe for this time of year, layered chocolate peppermint bark. Okay, so this recipe really is my favorite, and I make it every year because not only is it delicious, but it's also pretty simple to make. So to make the layered bark, you're gonna need 12 ounces of 100% dark chocolate, and for this I have 3 4-ounce bars. Then you're also gonna need 12 ounces of white chocolate. Now I usually get the bars, but I can only find the chips this time, and the bag is only 10 ounces. But you know what? Close enough, we're just gonna go with it. And the third thing you'll need is 8 candy canes. And I'm using a candy cane here that doesn't have any artificial colors or flavorings or any of that weird stuff in there. So even though it's still candy, it's a little bit better version. And this recipe really works because you have the 100% dark chocolate, which isn't sweet at all, and then you have the super sweet white chocolate, because white chocolate really isn't chocolate. It's basically just sugar. So when you have the contrast of those two extremes going together, it's really nice. And then the candy canes on top add the pepperminty flavor and a little festive color. So the first thing you need to do is melt your dark chocolate, and you can use a double boiler for this, but I like to do the microwave method because it's easy. So if you're using bars, you want to break those up. You can chop them up with a knife, but honestly, it's just another step that I don't feel like doing. If you chop it up, it will melt a little bit faster, but it's really not a huge deal. So just break it up into medium to small pieces, get it in some sort of heat-proof container like a glass measuring cup, and once you've got all 12 ounces of your chocolate in there, then you can go ahead and melt it. So you're gonna pop that guy in the microwave, and then you're gonna heat it up for 30 seconds. Once the 30 seconds is up, you can take it out and you'll see that it has started to melt a little bit. Then you can take a fork and kind of poke it and prod it and stir it as much as you can, and then it's gonna go right back in for another 30 seconds. And you're gonna keep doing this process of putting it in for 30 seconds and then taking out and stirring it, because we don't want the chocolate to burn, which can happen in the microwave. So you keep repeating these steps until you pull the chocolate out and it's completely melted and totally smooth. Once your chocolate is melted, then you want to get a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, and you're gonna pour the melted chocolate onto the parchment paper. Then you're gonna take a spatula and spread the chocolate out into a nice thin layer, and you want to try to go thin and as even as possible so that the bark has a nice even layer all the way across. Once your chocolate's all spread out, then you can take the sheet pan and kind of pick it up and drop it a few times, and this is just going to help get the surface nice and even. So if there are any little ripples or anything from when you spread or pour the chocolate out, it'll help get rid of that, and also it will help to get rid of any air bubbles that might be in there. Now it's time to let the chocolate set up and harden. So you want to take that baking sheet and put it into the fridge, and you want to make sure it's sitting somewhere where it can be nice and even, not tilted one way or the other, because we want to make sure that the chocolate stays in a nice even layer. While the chocolate's setting up in the fridge, we can move on to the next step, and that is the white chocolate. So just like the dark chocolate, we're going to do the same exact thing. Get your white chocolate, whether you're using bars or chips, and put it into your microwavable container. And then we're just going to repeat the same process as what we did with the dark chocolate. Put it in the microwave, heat it for 30 seconds on, take it out, stir it up, and then keep repeating that process over and over again until you end up with a fully melted, smooth white chocolate. Now we're gonna set the white chocolate to the side for a little bit to cool off, because we don't want it super hot when we pour it onto the dark chocolate layer, because then it can melt and swirl and not have that really nice defined layer look. And while that's cooling down a little bit, we're gonna work on our candy canes. So get your 8 candy canes and first take off those wrappers. And this might sound obvious, but I feel like it's something that could be easy to forget by mistake if you're like busy trying to do stuff. I don't know. It could happen. So take off the wrappers, and then we need to crush these candy canes up. So you can use a plastic bag for this. I didn't have any plastic bags, so I just used another sheet of parchment paper. Either way, you want to put your candy canes in the plastic bag, or if you're using the parchment paper, you can just fold it up into a nice little package to keep it all contained. Now you want to take something heavy like a mallet or a rolling pin and go ahead and take your aggression out on those candy canes. And we want to break them up into pretty small pieces. You want stuff that's bite-sized. You don't want any huge chunks that someone might bite down on. So just keep that in mind during this process. Once your candy canes are all broken up, now it's time to sift them. So you're gonna put a fine mesh strainer over a bowl or some other container, and we're gonna put all of our broken candy pieces into the mesh strainer and then just tap it or shake it around to sift the broken candy canes. Now this might sound like an extra step and you don't really have to do it, but it really creates a cool result because once you sift it all out, you'll end up with the larger candy cane pieces still in the strainer, and then if you look in the bowl, you'll have this fine peppermint candy cane sugar. And the reason this is so awesome is because then you can mix this fine candy cane sugar into the white chocolate. And this ensures that no matter what, there's going to be a little bit of that peppermint flavor in every single bite. Now it's time to take that hardened dark chocolate layer out of the fridge and get to work. So the first thing you want to do is pour the white chocolate onto your dark chocolate. And we want to move quickly here because we don't want that dark chocolate layer to start to melt either from the heat of the white chocolate or just from sitting out at room temperature. And we want to make sure we get nice distinct layers. We don't want things to kind of swirl all together. So pour out that white chocolate and then you want to spread it in a nice thin layer over the dark chocolate. Now this can be a little tricky because the white chocolate is pretty thick, especially as it starts to cool down. So use your spatula as much as you can, but if you have to go in and use your fingers, that's fine too, as long as your hands are clean, because with your finger you do get a little more control and you can be a little more precise and really get that white chocolate spread out as far to the edge as possible. And you don't have to go totally to the edge. You're still gonna have a little bit of a perimeter of that dark chocolate layer, and I think that's totally fine because it's a homemade treat, and honestly, there are going to be people out there who maybe don't want something quite as sweet, so having a piece that has a little more of that extra dark chocolate layer is going to be perfect for them. Once your white chocolate is all spread out as even as possible, then it's time to put on those big candy cane pieces. So you can shake them on or sprinkle them on with your fingers, however you like to do it. You just want to make sure you're getting a nice even layer all across the white chocolate. And then once you've sprinkled on all of your broken candy cane pieces, then you just want to take your fingers and pat across the top just to make sure they're really in there and adhered to the white chocolate, because we don't want them to like pop out or crumble everywhere when we break the pieces up or bite into them later. So just a nice little pat all across the top to make sure they're in there nice and snug. And at this point, it's time to put our sheet pan back in the fridge so that that final layer can solidify and set up. Once all of the chocolate has hardened up and it's ready to go, then you can take the sheet pan out of the fridge again, and now it's time to break up the bark into smaller pieces. Now I like to kind of lift the chocolate up at the edge here and press in the middle to get that first big break, and then go into quarters and kind of break it up that way first, because it's hard to get those small pieces right from the edge. It doesn't really work. And then once you've got those bigger pieces, then you can go ahead and start breaking it up into smaller pieces. And the great thing is here is that they don't have to be the same size or the same shape or anything like that. It's going to be totally random, and that's part of it being a homemade treat. But it's also nice because then people have some options. If they want a bigger piece or a smaller piece, there's a lot of variety in there so that everyone can get exactly what they want. And once you've broken all the bark up to your liking, then you're done. Now you want to store this in the fridge because we did not temper the chocolate. So when you temper chocolate, you heat it to a very certain temperature, and the whole process makes it so that the chocolate can sit out at room temperature without melting. Because we didn't do that, then that means that the bark will get a little soft and stuff if you just leave it out. So instead, just keep it in the fridge. That way it'll be nice and crisp and get a really nice snap when you take it out and you're ready to eat it. If you do want this to be able to sit out at room temperature for several hours and still be nice and hard or something like that, you can temper the chocolate. That's totally your thing. If you want to do that, I say go for it. It does take a little extra work, but if that's the result that you want, then that's totally worth taking the time to do. So that's my recipe for layered peppermint bark. I hope you liked it, and let me know in the comments, what is your favorite holiday sweet? Because even though I'm all about healthy eating, I can definitely appreciate a good dessert. And if you're new to my channel and you want more healthy eating tips and nutrition info and recipes just like this one, make sure that you subscribe, because eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle really doesn't have to be complicated, and I want to show you how to do it. And if you're loving the free info here, but you're finding that you need something a little more personalized, don't forget that I do offer one-on-one sessions. So if you want to work with me, just let me know and we can get that set up for you. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.